further support Scarlet Moon and cash in on great discounts and rewards, follow the link below and support the Scarlet Moon Patreon page.
Hello everybody. So, this month, on the 26th, Uranus, the planet of the big wake-up calls, randomness, spontaneity, upheaval, and all that inner awakening stuff, and outer awakening stuff, goes retrograde on the 26th, where it will stay retrograde all the way up until about the 25th of December, so it won't be turning direct until Christmas. So this is a long retrograde transit. It's 5 months long. It happens every year. What does Uranus retrograde mean? Or what does Uranus retrograde in Aries, for that matter, mean? Well, let's talk about the planet itself before we get into the sign. Quick reminder, this is an overview for the global atmosphere, for how these energies are going to be hitting everybody, the global community, all at the same time. If you would like to know how this affects your personal sun sign, or perhaps your personal ascendant, you can find that out on your monthly astrology horoscopes for July, which are up. And you can find the playlist on my main page, or you can get an astrology forecast with me. So, Uranus itself, again, it's the planet of upheaval. This is the planet that causes sudden, random, often dramatic change, for good or for ill. Typically these things can happen quite suddenly and quite unpredictably, as far as when they happen, how they happen, what happens. A lot of people will find this to be sort of a wake-up call, a sudden left turn, a sudden shift in events that, again, kind of actually advances or perhaps gets the person back on track. Sometimes Uranus has a tendency to do it in a way where it might seem a little bit too sudden, a little bit too forceful. If we've veered off our path or off our road, gone too far down a tangent, Uranus, in order to pull us back, may off-road us, all the way back to the main highway. That being said, though, Uranus can also give us some interesting shortcuts or some interesting speed boosts along the way. With Uranus going retrograde, we start to see that in a much diminished capacity. Again, because it's an outer planet, this is for good and for ill. For a lot of folks, this might come as a bit of a relief, because this does again say that we are slowing down or diminishing the opportunity for sudden upheaval. Anything that would actually happen out of the blue that might upset a current standard or a current lifestyle pattern or a current behavioral pattern is much more diminished in its impact and frequency. That being said, that also means that for people who tend to count on Uranus to sort of jump up and show the way, to change things for you, to bring that unexpected surprise, that unexpected sign or omen, again, the wake-up call, or maybe even the eureka aha moment, those will also be diminished in frequency and in impact. The reason this is important to understand is because there's always a cosmic lesson that we can learn through these seasons. If we learn to be adaptable with the astrology, if we learn to work with the astrology, we can understand how to best take advantage of whatever energies are present, whether they are quintessentially seen as positive or negative. And it's so important because every once in a while I'll look around the astrology community, whether they're professional astrologers, whether they are published astrologers or broadcasting astrologers, or even people who are just into their own astrology, people who are following their own work, and people who are more, interested in observing their path through astrology, or, consulting the astrology. Sometimes there can be this encouragement to just sort of be subject to the astrological energies. There's almost this conditioning, this understanding that the best we can do is just be like, oh. Funny enough, Uranus retrograde has a lot to say about that. It really does. And Uranus retrograde's lesson for the next 5 months is be your own wake-up call. Act, live, and behave deliberately. There is no, again, chunk of salvation that may come as quickly as we'd like. Again, the opportunities for that are slimming. And again, they're less impactful, so they might not necessarily jog or jar you out of a bad place. They won't jog or jar you out of a good place either, though. So again, there's the silver lining. Actually, it's not even lining. It's like half and half. But it's also about, again, being conscious. You know, being a conscious participant and showing up for our own lives in those areas. People who have Uranus retrograde in their natal charts know a lot about the need to get involved. A lot of people who have Uranus retrograde in their natal charts spend a great deal of their formative years and their childhood perhaps actually having that aspect of their lives, or that area of their lives, sort of be hijacked by another person. They're not really granted a whole lot in the way of freedom. You know, perhaps their childhood is hijacked by a parent who wishes they could be more of a child. And so instead of having a mother or father, they have more of a much older rival brother or sister in a parent figure. And that can kind of hijack a person. Or perhaps their social lives are hijacked by a lifestyle in which they are moving around quite frequently. And yes, that is random, but at the same time, this individual doesn't necessarily even get an opportunity to sort of create a standard for themselves or to develop these skills until they learn to choose to actually make that ripple themselves, manifest that themselves. And that's what a lot of people with Uranus retrogrades in their charts have a tendency to learn how to do. And so it's a very powerful asset and a very powerful learning experience for that person, should they choose to learn. Uranus retrograde in Aries is all about new beginnings, all right? And all of a sudden we see opportunities for beginnings start to be fewer and far between. Now that's not necessarily because they've gone anywhere. Those doors are still there. The doors are still open. But we might not necessarily be getting the flashing lights, the neon signs, and the fireworks that Uranus would normally present to grab and hold our attention. It's our responsibility to shine, design, and refine so we can actually follow those openings, follow those opportunities for ourselves. Sometimes we let ourselves get conditioned to sort of be placed somewhere, or we tend to only show up for our lives for these big impactful moments that happen to us, not with us. And so what's really important about using this Uranus retrograde to our advantage is that these things don't just show up to us. We have to show up for them. And Uranus retrograde itself, depending on where it falls in your chart, can be a beautiful asset, especially when it comes to getting a chaotic situation under control. If you're in a situation where, you know, it seems like there are way too many ups and downs, it's too much of a roller coaster, we can't get any consistency, Uranus retrograde is really going to be very helpful in making sure that we level this out. You know, things are going to calm down for a little bit. You get the power to decide, to control, to change any kind of situation that's going on there. Again, set a new vibrational standard. You know, raise the standard, raise the bar. Conversely though, if you are a person who feels kind of stuck, if you feel like you're in a place where nothing is changing fast enough, or things are kind of standing still, Uranus retrograde isn't going to bring something along. You know, this is really not what it's for. It's really kind of saying, okay, look, you want to initiate? Initiate. There's nothing standing in the way of your initiation. But again, there's nothing coming over the horizon either. So we've got this empty playing field. What are we going to do with a clean slate? You know, are we ready to step up to the plate and be taking more conscious control of the direction that we're going? Are we ready to sort of be autonomous? To be our own leader? To be our own person? Uranus retrograde may actually take some people out of our lives, or at least not necessarily take them out of our lives, but take their influence down a notch. And that could be helpful or hurtful. If we feel as though another person's influence has been holding us back, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's even a friend or a family member that has been sort of sabotaging us in some way. Because, again, of their random upsets, of their random choices, and, you know, whatever sphere of influence they have that you share, Uranus retrograde may actually diminish their ability or the impact of their ability to do so. Again, however, if we are relying on the external and we want it to kind of get dropped on the doorstep, kind of hoping it comes out of the blue, that's not going to happen as easily. And it's all about learning to get away from salvation consciousness and into elevated consciousness, so that we can actually be, again, adequate performers, but also conscious co-creators. And that's the important thing to learn during Uranus retrograde.